Hey Empoweristas, it's Alex Worley and I am joined by Jennifer and Jessica Carroll. They are the wife and daughter of Phil Carroll. They are creating a documentary about his life and during his last few years before he died of prostate cancer. It's an impactful story about life and love, so many lessons. So glad you guys are here to chat with me today.
Thank you,
and
Alex.
I can't wait to learn more. So first of all, before we dive into what you're working on, just tell me about your dad and your husband.
All right, so Dad, Phil Carroll, he was the rock star entrepreneur, and he just always lived life big. I mean, big is like an understatement. There's not even a word to describe how big he lived life. And he, 22 years old, he made his first million. And the only goal he had in life is that he wanted to build houseboats so that he could party, be surrounded by girls in bikinis with a cocktail in his hand. That's not a joke. He actually said that during an interview on a top news station in Canada, 22 years old.
And then things changed a little bit when he met his wife.
Well, not really. So then he met my wonderful mom, and they met on a houseboat, partying, in a shower with two other women. Like, you can't make this shit up. When I say that my dad lived big, he knew how to live life the right way.
It was a lot more wholesome than he liked to let on. It was, yeah.
Oh my goodness! It doesn't sound very wholesome.
True story. I mean, the fact that I'm sharing this and I'm the daughter, there's no threesome involved. But
thanks for clarifying.
Just wanted to clarify.
That's where my mind went.
Yeah.
So it was his favorite story of all time.
It was a lot more wholesome than everyone thought. But they did meet in the shower, clothes on, with my mom's friends.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so now I'm starting to put the picture together. Big personality, loves life, loves to party.
Yeah.
He was a rock star entrepreneur, but he was a genius financier. So I don't want to downplay that all he did is party and he just had, luck came his way. He worked
Right.
so
Did I not
hard.
mention that he makes me look bad because he made his first million at
25.
25. Okay.
Phil was unstoppable. He had this unstoppable spirit until sadly he was stopped by prostate cancer at the age of 52. He was diagnosed at 47, which is a young man to get a disease like this, and he died of one of the worst cases seen in North America.
So he was diagnosed when he was 47, and I'm sure that changed your lives a ton. You started documenting those last years.
She's trying to do a blog on me. I really want to find the cure for prostate cancer.
What was that chapter like?
That was, you go through life and it's just cruising along. And all of a sudden, you get hit by the big C, which is challenge or chaos, or in our case, catastrophe. And, some people hear the words, I'm leaving, or I do, or you're bankrupt, or your child has autism. To us, we heard the words, you have stage 4 prostate cancer and you're fighting for your life. And in that second, our lives were changed forever. And this world of infinite opportunities was scaled down to our house and the hospital. And so everything changed. I mean, one of the biggest things that we learned, and as you heard Jessica describe her dad, it was go big or go home. He learned the very important word, no. And people have a bucket list. We had a fuck it list. And we changed it to chuck it list because it was more politically and everything else correct. So a chuck it list, and we even created a chuck it bucket that we put on our kitchen counter. And we would, when life came at us, and we came up with this list of values. And we used the 5 F's. What's our 5 F values?
Faith, family, finance,
Fitness,
friends.
Yes, there you go.
Yay!
And as life came at us, if it didn't fall under one of those values, we chucked it. We actually wrote it down, and we would chuck it in the chuck it bucket.
I practiced my basketball skills.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And it prioritized our lives, and it was really part of the reason I ended up doing this Following Phil Following Phil video blog, is to just share some of these things that we learned as we walked in the valley of the shadow of death. Like, I hope no one has to do it, but people do. And the fact that we could glean some insight going through this journey and hopefully impact our friends and the people we loved with these amazing lessons that we were learning.
You were learning so many lessons about life while watching your loved one die. I mean, it's crazy how that can happen.
Yeah.
But what do you think is the core thing you learned about life?
For me, just like my mom kind of touched on it, so the last 6 months of my dad's life, we didn't know when, and my dad never thought he was going to die. But we knew, time was ticking. And so the last 6 months, I was going to school in California, and I would fly home every single weekend just to spend time with my dad. And I would interview him, and we would document all of these lessons we learned living while dying. And I have to say that the number one lesson I learned is that love is all that matters in life. Like when you take your last breath, the amount of cars you have, or the amount of followers or subscribers, or how much money you have, or how many homes you have, that stuff doesn't matter. That's not going to be around your deathbed at the hospital. What is are all the people that you've touched and the people you love. And when you take your last breath, it's all the memories that you've created that they are going to hold on to, and that's all they have left.
Love is all that matters. And
You
Phil
agree?
used to have a toast. He'd raise his glass and he'd say, in life, it's not what you do. It's who you do it with that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Here's to not what you do, but who you do. It's always had to be a little twist to Phil.
I love it.
It was never normal. It was always a little edgy,
And how special that you guys did start this video blog and we're starting to share these lessons. And then at what point did you go, you know what? I want to make a full-blown documentary out of this.
Well, I always wanted to do a documentary. I really did. And that was sort of my mode operandi. I had videotaped all this great footage and it was so powerful. And interesting enough that the year the movie The Boy came out, that won the
Boyhood, right?
Boyhood.
Yeah.
Boyhood, yeah.
It won an Academy Award. And even though they were actors, it was still almost like a bit of a documentary
Right.
of a boy's life.
Yeah.
And it won. And I don't know about you, but I thought it was boring as hell.
I kind of
And I'm like, if that wins an Academy Award, my Philip story is so much better, and he's even a better actor than all those actors. So I just had this, I'm going to do it. But I started writing it down, and I've been speaking for the last 3 years around the world and mostly talking to entrepreneurs about these philosophies of life, Phil's philosophies of life, the lessons that we learned living while dying. And they're real. It's amazing to see this room full of type A driver, entrepreneur, know-it-all, successful people, men and women who we engage with laughter and move to tears and inspire action to better their years, and how men come up to me after with just their eyes red with tears and talk about how the speech impacted them. And I think there's a couple important messages. The most important to me, you asked Jessie, and I love her message, love is all that matters. But there's another big one, and that is leave no words unspoken. And I just came to understand what that means more watching Phil die. I got a call from my son a couple days before Phil passed away, and he was crying so hard I could barely make out this big 18-year-old toothless hockey player kid. He was crying so hard. And he said, Mom, I just had this panic attack. Like, what if Dad dies suddenly and he doesn't know how I feel? And I'm like, oh, Austin, he knows how you feel. He knows you're biggest fan and he knows how much you love him. But here, I have an idea. It's almost Christmas. Write him a little Christmas card. Just write down how you feel and that you love him, and maybe some little stories about having fun in the backyard, playing hockey, or going on the boat in the summer. And so I told Austin that and hung up. He felt better. And sadly, Phil never made it to Christmas. He died 48 hours after I got that call. And honestly, I have been asked many times what it's like to be with the person that you love the most in the world on their deathbed. And for me, it wasn't horrific. It was tragic, but it was strangely magical. Kind of like my marriage, strange yet magical. And I just remember looking at Phil, and he was searching for words. And at the end, the cancer had gone into his skull and was affecting his vocal cords, so he could barely speak. And he almost just had this little faint whisper, and he was his mouth was forming words, but they weren't coming out. And I watched him struggle. And finally, I just put my fingers on his mouth and I said, Phil, you don't have to say anything because you've said it all. You've left no words unspoken. And I went on and I said, I know how much you love me as your wife of 22 years. I know that you've cherished every moment that we've been together. I know how proud you are of your kids, that they're going confidently towards their dreams and living the life that they imagine. And I know that because you've told us. You've told me in letters and them in cards and them to our face and a little bit of tough love thrown in there, a lot actually. I said, we knew this. I know all your words. And he relaxed. And I went on for, what seemed, I gave him a eulogy. And he passed away. And I recognized that, wow, I know you're a young gal and Jesse's a young gal, and you're a lot of your viewers are probably young people. But if you were put on your deathbed tomorrow and you lost your breath, your voice, could the person that you love the most in the world, your person, could they speak your words? Or have you left words unspoken? And the power of words and sharing your words in life. Austin, that night, did not write a Christmas card. He actually wrote an email. And it was a 2-page love letter to his dad. And he sent it that night. And the next morning, thank God.
Oh, good.
I handed up Phil after breakfast a 2-page love letter from his 18-year-old son, and he wept and he cried and he said, this is the greatest gift a father could ever get.
And I know there's a lot of themes in this documentary about celebrating life, about being unstoppable, about taking your health very seriously. At the end of the documentary, what call to action do you hope your viewers take?
We want to do the documentary for many reasons. Obviously, we want this documentary to change lives and save lives. And I, as a 25-year-old, one of the hardest things that brings me to tears every time is that I have to live, the rest of my life without my best friend and my buddy and my father. But that fairy tale wedding that I've always dreamt of will never come true now because I don't have a father to walk me down the aisle. And my father will never meet my husband. And my children will never meet the most amazing grandfather. And so if we can just prevent one life and just encourage one little girl to say, Dad, I saw this documentary, will you just go get checked? And, and that father gets checked and he is able to prevent prostate cancer because it is one of the more preventable cancers. It will make this documentary worthwhile. We're also doing it because I want to keep my father alive. I want his legacy to live on forever, and I want to honor my father. And I know, they always say, what makes content go viral? You have to make them laugh, which my father 100% will, down to his last breath. He just knew how to make people laugh. Move them to tears, and encourage them and inspire them to reevaluate their life. And I really think that this documentary will do it.
So what's the next step for making this documentary?
Get the right team on board because we're all about, what does team stand for? Together, everyone achieves more. So corny, but it's so true.
Before.
So true. Maybe that was another lesson from Dad. But, we want to get a good team. We want to do it right. And we really want this to just change lives.
Yeah.
Lastly, I ask all of my guests, what is your definition of empowerment?
Never lose sight of your childhood dreams.
Yeah.
Never lose sight of your childhood dreams and stay focused on them.
Empowerment to me is, I truly believe that, one woman, one person is powerful. But if you get a bunch of empowering people together, they're unstoppable. It's like magic happens.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, and I just cannot wait to see this documentary. It sounds so beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, you bet. And let us know what your definition of empowerment is using hashtag Empowerista, and we'll show you some social media love.
Bye.